Hi guys, in this video I just wanted to quickly talk about the external design changes of the GoPro Hero 8 and then do a menu walkthrough for you. So the first thing you'll note is that we now have these little pop-out feet which are screwed onto the bottom of the camera and they fold away just like so. Now that is a complete change from the case that you used to have to put the GoPro in. You see that the mode button is now on the left hand side of the camera, and the big change that a lot of people have been upset about and I'm not very impressed with is the lens is now not doesn't have a lens cover that's detachable. It's all built into the camera, and as you can see the build quality is not brilliant on this camera. I think I'm going to be sending this unit back because I'm not that impressed with the amount of movement I can get from that front lens element. Also where the battery door is, you've got that gap which is a bit disconcerting. It is well water sealed. The battery door itself, if you've got short nails like me, is quite difficult to open, and it only opens to kind of not quite 90 degrees, and then if you push it up any further it just pops off very easily. It is better than before in terms of build quality and construction of that door. It is metal fixing onto the camera rather than plastic as before. You've got a new battery with the blue bit on, which you can use the old batteries, but the new one you need, according to GoPro, for all of the camera's functionality, i.e. for HyperSmooth Boost. The micro SD card is still in a really irritating place in terms of trying to get it in and out. If you basically have to take the battery out to get it in and out. I find you can use the door to do that, so use the corner of the door like so. You just pop it in and out using that, which is one way to get it in and out if you don't want to keep removing the battery. But even when you do that, it's a bit of a pain to get out of there. You'll note that there is a USB-C port on the side of the camera, but the HDMI has been removed, so that will come back if you buy the media mod for the camera, which is I think coming out in December. But it's a shame that GoPro have taken away a few things off this camera that were on the previous versions. It always irritates me when companies do that and they take away things and don't replace them with anything. So you've got your record button on the top, and you still have quick capture, so you can start and stop recording by just pressing that. If you've got quick capture turned on, you don't need to actually turn the camera on to start with. As you can see, the door is a bit of a pain, and also it exposes the whole side of the camera when it's open or off, including the SD card. There's microphones situated around the bottom of the camera, the side and the front there. So let's talk about the menus, and I'll do a quick walkthrough now of the main interface and how it's changed. Jumping right into the camera, the on button now is on the side, and that's also the mode button there. So it's on the left hand side, no longer on the right hand side because the battery door is now on this side. So jumping right in, as you can see, we have got the screen up here. You've got your time remaining, you've got your battery over on the right hand side. We're currently in video mode, so it's showing you video there. If we swipe left and right, you can go into photo mode, and then it tells you, you can then bring up which photo mode you want. And similarly, if we swipe if we swipe left twice, we go to the time-lapse modes, and I'm currently got it set in night-lapse, but you've got the TimeWarp, time-lapse, night-lapse. So fairly simple to navigate. So you swipe left and right. If we go back into video, So at the moment I've got my 4K 30 linear sort of cinematic profile. One thing that the GoPro 8 has added is the ability to put in preset sort of profile settings. So if you tap on that one, as you can see, it brings up a selection here of different presets for different scenarios. So you've got a standard one which is 1080p 60 frames a second in super view. I did a bike one the other day which was 2.7K, and actually I want to change that. So you can see on the right hand side here you've got these little pencils, so you click on that and then you're into the settings for that preset profile. So I'd actually like to have it in 2.7K but 120 frames a second, and it brings up this little notice, and you'll see this on a few of the different resolutions. It's basically telling me that I need a computer or phone that will support the HEVC codec. So we'll just say don't show that again. So I want to select 2.7K 120, tap that, and now as you can see, this is now changed from super view and HyperSmooth. Now I've only got the ability to turn it on or off, whereas if I come out of this, so that's at 4K 60 that's at 2.7K 60. If I go 2.7K 120, as you can see, the lens now has changed to wide. So it will give me wide, it will give me linear and narrow. But again, as you can see, as I'm changing this digital lens, so essentially the field of view, it's actually changing the other settings. And this is something that GoPro's advertising. You've got HyperSmooth in all frame rates and all resolutions, which is true, but you do still have these limitations whereby in certain frame rates and certain resolutions you lose the ability to have certain lenses, i.e. certain field of views like super view, the really wide one, and also as you change these, the HyperSmooth changes in terms of what you can actually have, what you're allowed to have. So the different levels of HyperSmooth. So at the moment I can have on or off in this setting. If I go to 4K 60 frames a second, I can only have on or off. If I go to the super view lens, it's dropped me down to 4K 30 there. So if I go to 2.7K 60 frames a second, it's still not allowing me in super view to have HyperSmooth Boost or high. But if I go to 2.7K 60 and the wide lens, I can now have HyperSmooth high. If I want HyperSmooth Boost, I'm going to 2.7K 60 and the wide, and I can have boost. So similarly on my cinematic one here, if I want 4K 30 linear, I can go into that and I've got boost available. If I change that to 4K, say 4K 60, suddenly the lens changes to wide from linear, so I don't have linear anymore. If I put the lens into linear, it drops it to 4K 30 and back to boost. So as you can see, it's automatically changing other settings based on the various frame rates. So it is still limited to an extent, and I understand from GoPro that in the next month or two they're going to bring a firmware update which allows 4K 60 with HyperSmooth Boost. Whether that will be just in the wide angle or whether it will be linear, I'm not sure. I think it might be linear, but yeah, I'm not sure whether it will be boost or HyperSmooth high or HyperSmooth on and off. So that's just something I wanted to raise first off. You can also add new presets. If I press that plus button, you can say video mode or looping or slow-mo. So let's start with video. Let's say I want to have a 120 frames a second at 1080p. And that will allow me to have a wide lens, and I'd like to go for boost. So that allows boost and a wide lens. If I just wanted HyperSmooth on high, it doesn't give me that option. Not sure why. If we change that to super view, again, now it just gives me on or off. So it's giving me different options depending on what it's capable of doing. And you can discard those changes if you don't want to create that profile. So that's just a quick overview of the profiles. Within each one, you also have the ability to choose your Pro Tunes. So bitrate, you can choose either low or high now. So the low setting is essentially the old Hero 7, which was maxed out about 75, 80, just under 80 megabits per second. If you put it in high, it goes up to 100. So that's something I would always recommend if you want the highest resolution, and it does increase your file sizes though, so just be aware of that. You can change your shutter speed, and again, all these sliders allow you to just change all these settings on the fly quite easily. It should be noted though that once you are recording, you don't have any touchscreen capability at all. You've got your white balance, you've got your ISO min and max, sharpness, color. You can either have GoPro flat or GoPro colors, and then you've got your audio and raw audio. So with the audio, you can put wind in auto, so it'll automatically filter out the wind, or you can have it on, or you can have it off. I've found for talking head stuff, so if you're vlogging, generally you want it off unless it is particularly windy. So that is the kind of interface, and the touchscreen is good. It's still quite laggy though compared to a phone, and also it's just quite small. I'm surprised they haven't tried to increase the touchscreen slightly on this. The other thing you can do is if you tap up there, you can see all these have changed colour. You can move these around. You can restore presets back to the originals, and you can also move these up and down, as you can see. So if you want your sort of most used ones at the top, that's what you can do. The other thing I wanted to talk about is these shortcut buttons here. So you've got essentially 4 buttons on the main screen that act as shortcuts, so kind of hotkeys really. So one is, and you can customize all of these actually in each of these profiles setups. So if you go into your profile, you can go all the way down to the bottom, and you can see on-screen shortcuts. You've got lower left, lower right, upper left, upper right, and you can change all these. So say I want the lower right to be something else, I could put that to nothing, or I could put it to something like bitrate, for example. And then when you go back to the main screen, you'll notice that down here I now have bitrate, which I can, in 2 taps, I can adjust. So you can put anything on here. You can put your HyperSmooth So you can have your boost on and off. At the moment it's only on. You've got your digital lenses there, so it's quite useful. It shows you like what it's going to look like by just swiping through them. And then you've got things like slow motion you can add here. So I think the whole interface works really well. It would have been nice if the touchscreen was better. In terms of time-lapse stuff, again, I've set this one up for night-lapse. So for example, I have got GoPro color or flat color I can choose there. I've got my my shutter interval, so 10 seconds, and I can adjust that as I wish. And then here I've got my interval as well between shots, and I've also got my ISO, so I can adjust. I think that's actually my max ISO. So as you can see, the GoPro now is a lot more customizable, much more like the Osmo Action, which I'm going to be doing a comparison video on both of the interfaces of these cameras, and also just a general comparison of how good they are. But I thought it would be helpful to give you a quick walkthrough of that. Another thing that I should have noted earlier is that the 4K in video, the 4K linear mode that I was showing you earlier. So here we go, this 4K 30 linear. When I first unboxed the camera and set it up and got going, it didn't have that feature. It wasn't until I had upgraded the firmware to the latest firmware version as of October 2019 that this functionality came up on the screen. So I'd highly recommend when you first get your GoPro that you upgrade the firmware. And I hope this walkthrough of the menu systems has been helpful. As you can see, it's fairly intuitive. It's there's also a few more features in photo mode. So you now have the live burst here. Again, you can customize all of this, and you also have the burst function and also night photos. So you've got RAW output. You can decide whether you want RAW, standard, HDR or super photo. So super photo lets your GoPro basically automatically choose for you the best image processing for your shot depending on the conditions, which I've not tried yet, but it's something I'm going to be testing out to see how good a job it does. I found that the HDR photos are pretty decent. It did get it wrong a couple of times, depending on the lens that was being used, the digital lens. So I think it was on the wide lens, it got a really dark exposure on exactly the same shot as when I was doing it on the super view lens and narrow lens. The other thing I should say is that it's still a pull up for your footage, so you can go between your footage, play your footage, all this kind of stuff. You can scrub through it. It's quite easy to scrub through. This is just a quick walking test I did. And obviously you can choose to delete here straight out of camera. You can choose the playback speed, so you can replay the slow-mo footage in slow motion or at real time if you want to. And obviously you can highlight a clip if you or a particular favourite moment in a clip, as you could always do before. So that is pretty similar to before. You can go into this mode and see all your clips there, and yeah, it's all fairly intuitive if you've ever used other recent GoPros before. It's all fairly straightforward. The other thing you've got is if you drag down from the top, you've now got grid lines which you can put on, which is quite a useful feature for framing up your shot. As you can see, you've now got grid lines. That's quite helpful. You've got your voice commands up here. You've got your camera beeps on and off. you have your quick capture, so the ability is just to press the record button and it starts the camera and starts filming straight away. And orientation lock, so if you have that off, you'll see, if I just do that, you can see the orientation has changed to a portrait mode. So you can just get that back in focus. So you can do that. And is there anything else? Yeah, you've got your preferences, so your connections, various wireless stuff. You can link this up to the GoPro app, obviously. And you do need to do that when you first get the camera to register it, get it all working properly. You've got your voice control, touchscreen. You've got things like the brightness and the orientation and stuff. So yeah, you can dive into all of that stuff. Okay, so hopefully you found this video helpful. Please do comment below if you have any specific questions, anything I haven't covered in terms of menus and how to use the camera. And yeah, please, if you did find this helpful, please leave a like, do subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. I'm going to be bringing a few more videos on the GoPro Hero 8 and also comparing it to both the Osmo Action and also the GoPro Max. So look forward to testing out that versus this camera. One thing I should add is that the glitches that you found with the GoPro Hero 7, if any of you own that camera, still seem to exist in this camera. I was using it to vlog with the other day, and it just completely glitched and froze, and I had to completely reset the camera, take the battery out. It then was telling me that my SD card needed formatting and it just wasn't working at all. So it's worth noting that, and also making sure you've got fast enough SD cards, because I think it might have been something to do with the fact I was using a slightly slower SD, micro SD, compared to the V30 ones that they recommend, but it was still a pretty fast one. So I don't know whether that was why it hasn't done it again since, but I will keep you updated if I do find any further problems with the camera. Anyway, I've rambled on way too long. Hope you found this helpful. I will see you in the next video.